जनरञ्जन यशोधनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यमुनतीरा वनचारि यमुनतीरा वनचारि जय राधा माधवा कुंज विहारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज विहारी जय गोपीचन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी जय गोपीचन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदनन्दन जय जनरञ्जन यशोदनन्दन जय जनरञ्जन यमुनतीरा वनचारि यमुनतीरा वनचारि जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा श्रील प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा जय प्रभुपादा श्रील प्रभुपादा जो विष्णुपाद परमहंस परमश्रेष्ठ सदाशिव श्रीमती स्वयं श्री भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। इस्कॉन संस्थान का श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जो विष्णुपाद परमहंस परमश्रेष्ठ सदाशिव श्रीमती सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की जय। जय विष्णुपाद लखोर किशोरदास बोध महाराज की जय। जय विष्णुपाद सच्चिदानंद श्री भक्तिनाथ ठाकुरा की जय। जय विष्णुपाद वैष्णव सार्वभौम जगन्नाथ दास बोध महाराज की जय। जय श्री रूप सनातन भट्टर बनारसी के गोपाल भट्टदास गोस्वामी प्रभु की जय। नमाचार्य श्रीदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से को श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्वेत वेदांत शिवसादि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरिवर्धन की जय। श्री श्री गौरांगी बेंगलोरीश्वर भगवान की जय। श्री मायापुर धाम की जय। श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय। गंगमही की जय। यमुना माई की जय, भक्ति देवी की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय, ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, इस्कॉन वर्तमान गुरुवृंद की जय, समावेद भक्तवृंद की जय, गौर प्रेमानंद हरि बोल. All glories to the assembly. All glories to the assembly. All glories to the assembly. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Patreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhakti Bhakti Naishti. Welcome you all to the Friday morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 28, Text 42. Sarvabhuteshu Chatmanam Sarvabhutani Chatmani Ikshe Tananya Bhavena Bhuteshu Eva Tadatmatam Sarvabhuteshu Chatmanam Sarvabhutani Chatmani Ikshe Tananya Bhavena Bhuteshu Eva Tadatmatam Sarvabhuteshu Chatmanam Sarvabhutani Chatmani Ikshe Tananya Bhavena Bhuteshu Iva Tadatmatam. Translation Srila Prabhupada ki jai. A yogi should see the same soul in all manifestations. For all that exists is a manifestation of different energies of the Supreme. In this way, the devotee should see all living entities without distinction. That is realization of the Supreme Soul. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. As stated in the Brahma Samhita, not only does the Supreme Soul enter each and every universe, but he enters even the atoms. The Supreme Soul is present everywhere in the dormant state, and when one can see the presence of the Supreme Soul everywhere, one is liberated from material designations. The word Sarvabhuteshu is to be understood as follows. There are 4 different divisions of species. Living entities which sprout from the earth, living entities born of fermentation or germination, living entities which come from eggs, and living entities which come from the embryo. These 4 divisions of living entities are expanded into 84 lakh species of life. A person who is free from material designations can see the same quality of spirit present everywhere or in every manifested living entity. Less intelligent men think that plants and grass grow out of the earth automatically, but one who is actually intelligent and has realized the self can see that this growth is not automatic. The cause is the soul, and the forms come out in material bodies under different conditions. By fermentation in the laboratory, many germs are born, but this is due to the presence of the soul. The material scientists think that eggs are lifeless, but that is not a fact. From Vedic scripture, we can understand that living entities in different forms are generated under different conditions. Birds evolved from eggs, and beasts and human beings are born from the embryo. The perfect vision of the yogi or devotee is that he sees the presence of the living entity everywhere. Om Jnanam Shalake Chakshurmiltam Vena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manopishtam Stapitam Ena Putre Swayam Rupagadamahim Dadati Svapadatikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Dapatakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sadhana Raghunathanvikam Tamsiji Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sadhana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vidhamscha Ye Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gupta Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Taptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishvanuste Devi Pranamami Haripriya Panchakalpatarubhyasya Kvasnivibhyacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nitya Ananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Moham Karodi Vachalam Pangam Nalvedi Gandhya Kapat Muhammad Shri Prandiradana Paramandaman Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna. So here in this verse, Kapil Dev is mentioning that a yogi should see the same soul in all the manifestations, For all that exists is a manifestation of the different energies of the Supreme. And in this way, the devotee should see all living entities without distinction. That is realization of the Supreme Soul. That means in every living entity that is there, living being that is there in this material world, there are two things. One is there is a material body, and then there is a spirit soul. The material body will vary from a living being to living being, but the spirit soul that is there is the same in all the forms of life. There is no difference in the spirit soul in the various forms of life. It's the same. And this spirit soul is nothing but this part and parcel of the Supreme Soul, that is the Lord Himself. So here it is mentioned as to how in Brahma Samhita, Srila Prabhupada is quoted in Brahma Samhita, from Brahma Samhita about the presence of the Supreme Soul, that is Paramatma, in each and every universe, and also not only the universe but also the atoms. So the Lord as Paramatma, so like I mentioned, matter and spirit. The universe as such cannot float in the air. It's huge. In fact, this Earth planet, which belongs to the smallest of the universe, itself is quite huge. The Earth planet itself is quite big. And there are universes which are much, much more bigger and bigger than this universe where we are in. And so imagine the size and the weight and the volume. None of them can float independently in the air. But it is said that just as you see aircraft is quite heavy with so many passengers, the weight of the plane itself, but it is flowing by the manipulation of the air force, the forces of air in different directions. But here, the universes or the planets or even the stars, luminaries, they are all floating, and each of them have its own weight, and they are all floating in the air due to the presence of the Lord as Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu. The Lord as Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu enters into each and every universe. And not only here it is mentioned about the universe, but he also enters into each and every atom that is present. So the matter that is there, it is a dull matter. It has no life in it. But because the soul enters into each of these bodies as well as the universes and planets and all of them, as Paramatma, they all float in the air. So the same Supreme Soul is there in each of these planets and universes. And the same Supreme Soul is also present in each of the living being also. So in all the living being, there is one thing that is called an individual soul. The individual soul is also present. And by the side of the individual soul, the Paramatma also is present as the super soul. And it is because of the presence of the super soul, of course, the soul brings life to the body, but the super soul is all pervading, and the super soul is also the permitter. It is also the proprietor and also the facilitator. Now, this super soul, what does is that whatever the soul as we have, for example, in this material body, we have a desire that I must, have every day, say, a new dress. So we have a desire, and the super soul as a witness is observing all these desires. And if our karma is such that we can deserve it in our next life, the super soul facilitates that. It's the super soul that permits that desire within us to be fulfilled, if not in this birth, the next birth, or birth after birth, or maybe after 10 births, or some desires that we may have. But the sukriti or the account that we have may not be sufficient enough to fulfill that desire. So sometimes it may take even 100 births or even 1,000 births. So the super soul facilitates all these things to fulfill our desires. So the super soul is always accompanying this individual soul in each and every body. At the same time, each and every body, the super soul is the proprietor of that body. So there is a quote from Brahma Samhita, Andandarashta Paramanu Chayandarashtam, whereby Lord Brahma says that the Lord as the super soul is existing and also as the soul in each and every atom as also in every universe. At the same time, the Lord as a super soul is not divided just because from our material perspective, we might see that one person cannot pervade everywhere. So if we see he has spread his two hands or two legs on two different places, that he has divided himself into two. But in the case of the Supreme Lord, there is no such a thing as a division, but the Lord is still present in each and every atom and in each and every living being also in the universe. Then there is a mention about how there are different divisions of the species of life. Now, there are 4 categories of species of life that are given. That is, living entities which sprout from the earth. For example, plants and creepers, all of them, they all sprout from the earth. So in each and every plant also, there is a spirit soul that is present. Generally, people tend to think that plants are grown, automatically they grow. No, it is not like that. There is a seed for everything. We might also see that there are seeds for every plant. And there may be some which we may not be able to see also. Sometimes we may see a wild plant or a wild creeper that is growing, but that is also growing because of the presence of the soul within that plant. Then the next type of classification is given that living entity born of fermentation or germination. Now, these are living entities. For example, we may turn a milk into a curd. That is a fermentation. So in the process, it does not happen automatically. In the process of fermentation, a living entity comes into force, and it is because of the presence of the living entity that transformation takes place. Similarly, it is said that many times we perspire, and when we perspire, after in the course of the perspiration, we may feel some itches in the body. So it is said that the itches in the body happen due to the presence of some insects or worms or germs, which we may not be able to see. But it is the presence of these germs that creates the itching sensation in the body. And that is because of the living entity in which also the same soul is present. Then there are living entities which come from eggs. See, for example, chicken. Now, they lay eggs, and the bird lays the eggs, and then from that a chicken comes out. Now, people don't believe that that egg does not have life. It has got life, but what they sell outside in the market is after a certain amount of process, and that egg is taken away from the bird. But it has got life. Without that life, there cannot be another bird that can be coming out of it. So there is life into it, and that life is nothing but the spirit soul that is present within the egg. And the last classification that is given is living entities which come out from the embryo. These are like human beings and others. The living entity, the living force or living being comes out from the embryo. So these are from 4 different types of classifications of species that are given. Now, among these also, there are sub-classifications that are given in the Shastras. I can take through some of these basic classifications. All these put together, combined, make together about 84 lakh different species of life. But all the 84 lakh species of life, they have one thing in common, that is the individual spirit soul in each of them. This is a quotation. Further, there is a classification given in the Padma Purana. Further classifications are given that there were 9 lakh species of living that are living in the water. They're called aquatics. They live in water, fishes, and so many different types of varieties are there. Then there are 20 lakh species of non-moving items such as trees and plants. There are about 20 lakh different species of that. Then there are 11 lakh species of insects and reptiles. Then there are 10 lakh species of birds. Then there are 30 lakh species of quadrupeds. That means those with 4 legs. And 4 lakh species of humans. And this further is still classified in different subclassifications. For example, the immovable entities like trees and plants, they are further divided on different types, like the fruits, trees with fruits, trees with flowers, trees without fruits and flowers, then creepers, then white plants which have no support, etc. And there are trees with flowers as well as fruits. So these are all further classifications. And all of these trees and plants, they have consciousness and they also have pain. Suppose somebody doesn't pour water on them, they also feel the difficulty and they also have pain. And they also, not only that, they also communicate within themselves. We might think, how can they communicate? Because we are used to hearing sound within the communication within human beings, or sometimes barking of dogs or mewing of the cats, etc. But plants also communicate, but that sound we cannot hear. But scientists say that they also communicate within themselves. Then the lower species of life, there are also different varieties, but they know mostly they subsist on the sense of smell. For example, dogs or cats, they can only smell. And some of them, like for example, ants, they go after sweet. And there are some types of species which have some specific instincts and specific qualifications. And it is mentioned that even human beings do not have those. But these insects and these things, they have been empowered or endowed with a quality. For example, it is said that a spider can create a web which a human being cannot create. He can stitch so many things and by hand, but one cannot create a cobweb like what a spider can create. So these are some of the special characteristics and qualities by which these species are classified. Then there are animals like cow, goat, buffalo, lamb, camel, etc. And there are horses, mules, ass, etc., cow, and there are animals which have which have one hoof, and the animals which have 2 horns, and the animals which have 5 nails. These classifications are also given in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Then there are those like the dogs, jackal, tiger, fox. They all have 5 nails in their claws. So that's why they are called panchanakas, or animals having 5 nails. And these animals know only 2 things, their hunger and thirst. As long as their hunger and thirst are satisfied, their desires are fulfilled. They don't have any other desire. Then there are birds like vultures, peacocks, etc. And birds have one quality. There are some birds that are classified, and birds have a quality by which they can migrate from one end of the globe to the other end of the globe, which mankind may not be able to do. So these are all qualities that are endowed with various species of life. Then the human beings have specific qualities. For example, a human being can become aware of his own self. This is a special quality of a human form of life. He can understand that he is not this body, but he's a spirit soul. He can be aware of his own self. Then the human being can also have very nice creative imagination. That is, one can make a lot of varieties in anything we use. He does, for example, he can cook various types of food. He can wear the various types of dresses. So there can be a lot of varieties that human being can have. And these are all because due to the creative, imaginative capacity that is endowed by the Lord. Then there is a conscience that discriminates gives a discriminatory power by which one can understand what is right and what is wrong, what is good and bad. This is a capacity that is given only to human beings and not for other species of life. And lastly, human beings are given a strong willpower. We can have a willpower, yes, from today, I will eat only twice a day, or I will fast on Ekadasis. These are willpower that human being can undertake, or austerities that a human being can undertake, but other species cannot undertake. Then, of course, there are demigods, which are, it is mentioned that there are 8 different varieties. They are the demigods themselves. Then there are Upadevas. These are called assistants, semi-demigods, assistants to the demigods. Then, of course, the forefathers. Then there are Asuras or demons. Then there are Gandharvas and Apsaras, Yakshas and Rakshasas, the Siddhas or Vidyadharas. Then there are Bhutas and Pretas. And there are some superhuman beings or celestial singers like the Gandharvas and Apsaras. So these are different classifications which all come in the human form of life. When we say human form of life, they also have a form, something very similar, very much similar, but the features may be different. We may not be able to realize these, but the Shastras mentioned that these are classifications basically. In fact, it is said that the form of mankind also is given from the form of God. So all these different species of life are there, and based on their qualities or characteristics, these classifications are given. There are some planets and the heavenly planets called Sitaloka, where the residents can travel even without any vehicle. We all need a vehicle if we have to go travel from one end to the other. But these residents can travel from one to the other because they have that capacity. They have been given that power. They can travel without vehicles. That is why it is said that the inhabitants of these upper planets, they all have a higher level of science, culture, brain, which are far compared to the human beings on the earth. The spirits or the jinns are also classified in this because they can perform some uncommon functions which are not possible for men. They can, without the form, they can create disturbance to others which we may not be able to perceive also. So that is why they are also included in the Upadevas or in the human form of life. One important characteristic or quality it is mentioned about the demigods or devas, they can take any forms, they can take multiple forms. It is not that they can retain only one form, they can take multiple forms. But now the point is that the quality of the soul, which is Satchidananda, that is eternity, bliss, and knowledge, is fully realized only in the human form of life and above, not in the lower species of life, because they are ignorant about the soul that is there. But the thing is, all the spirit soul that is present in each of these forms of life, quality is the same, that is Satchidananda, but can be realized only in the human being form of life. Then there is a mention as to how one should see all of them in the same perspective. Not that one should not see a true yogi or a devotee is one who sees the same soul as a manifestation in each of these bodies. He sees everybody without any distinction. In fact, the Lord himself tells Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavi Hastini Suni Chaiva Sopakecha Pandita Samadarshina. The translation is, the humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and a gentle Brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater. So the purport is the same, in that one who is learned, who knows that it is not the body, it is the spirit soul because of which all these are manifest. In fact, the body itself is made up of gross elements which are also energies of the Supreme Lord. So either way, you take the matter as it is separately, or you take the spirit soul separately, They are all energies of the Supreme Lord. One is an inferior energy and the other is a superior energy. But all are the same different energies of the Lord. They are all connected to Krishna and they are not independent of Krishna. So one who is learned is, or rather, one is called a learned. That's why it is said that the humble sages, these sages are devotees, is one who by virtue of true knowledge, they have that knowledge and realization by which they are able to see that all of them, whether it's a learned or a gentle Brahmana, or a cow, or an elephant, or a dog, or a dog eater, the soul is the same. It is only a matter of change of the form of the external form of the body, which also is due to the their individual respective karma or whatever is, each one has got their own body. And then it is also mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, when one can see the presence of the Supreme Soul also everywhere, one is liberated from material designations. So it is not that only a individual spirit soul is present in each of these forms of life. At the same time, one should understand there is a super soul also exists in all these forms of life. And such a person becomes liberated from these material conditions, material miseries. And these, the right one or one who is intelligent sees not only the Lord being present in all these, but also the living beings or everybody present in the Lord. That means one is the Lord is the maintainer of all these living beings. It is only because the Lord being present, of course, the soul creates action or activity to the dull matter in the form of body. But at the same time, the super soul is the witness, is the overseer, is the permitter. Without the sanction of the super soul, nothing can happen. For example, if a person has paralysis, it means that the super soul is not permitting that particular function of the body of the particular living being. For example, another example given is that about as to how the super soul observes on all these things, and each and every part of the body has got an individual demigod or an individual upadevata or so many higher living beings or planets or stars. All of them are connected to one individual body. There are some examples that are given as to how even stars, when someone takes birth, the stars present have its effect. So every star or every planet or every luminary has got a connection with every living being, and each one has its effect due to one's karma. So when they take birth, they all have their effect. And it is the super soul who sanctions these, and it is by the sanction of the super soul, the concerned devata or concerned upadevata, they can perform their activities only by the sanction of the super soul, not otherwise. So in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says to Arjuna in chapter 13, he said the super soul is the original source of all senses, yet he is without senses, he is unattached, although he is the maintainer of all living beings. That means the Lord who is maintaining all the living beings in the form of the super soul. He transcends the modes of nature, and at the same time, he is the master of all the modes of material nature. So the Lord as the maintainer maintains all living beings. And the next sloka, he says, the supreme truth exists outside and inside of all living beings, the moving and non-moving. That means the Lord is present as Paramatma in all the living beings. At the same time, the Paramatma is all pervading even outside also. And in the same sloka, he says, although far, far away, he is also near to all. The super soul is present just very close next to the soul, but still he is also far away. He can see what is there in any living being. For example, individual soul can only see what is happening in individual body, but the super soul as a witness can see, the same super soul sees every activity, mind, thoughts, and words of all the living beings. Also, in Bhagavad Gita chapter 15, the Lord tells Arjuna, I enter into each planet and by my energy they stay in orbit. That means, like I mentioned at the beginning of the class, that the Lord is present as Garbhodakasa Vishnu in each and every universe also. And he says that I become the moon and I supply the juice of all life to all the vegetables. So whatever we see, plants, vegetables, fruits, etc., it is the Lord who gives the juice of all of these. Not only this, the Lord says that I am the fire of digestion in the bodies of all living entities, and I join with the air of life, outgoing and incoming, to digest the four kinds of foodstuffs. So there are different kinds of air that flows through the body, prana, apana, and so forth. So it is the Lord who is present, because of which the fire of digestion takes place. Sometimes you might see that there is indigestion that takes place, because the super soul does not permit that. And there is another sloka in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita where the Lord says, Sarva bhutastam atmanam sarva bhutani chatmani ikshate yoga yuktatma sarvatra samadarshinaha. He said that a true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere. So the same thing that is mentioned in this particular sloka in Srimad Bhagavatam. But a real devotee or yogi is one who sees the Supreme Lord or the Super Soul in all the living beings, and also all the living beings in the Supreme Soul. So the point is that the Lord creates all the material manifestations. The secondary creation is done by Brahma. Then it is maintained by Lord Vishnu himself. And after annihilation, all the living beings enter into the body of Vishnu. So ultimately, Lord is the what do you call? Everybody goes back into the Supreme Lord's body itself. So, and the creation, they all come out of the Supreme Lord only. So everyone, is a true devotee. He should see the Lord everywhere in the presence of each and every living being. And the Lord says, if one who sees in such a way and sees everything as supreme in the presence of Supreme Lord, the Lord says, I am never lost to such a person, and he is also never lost to me. Also, the Lord says that he is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and distress. And Arjuna. So a perfect yogi is one who can understand the equality or equanimity of all the living beings. It is only the external manifestations of various forms that are different, but the Lord is the same as the super soul, and the soul is also the same. And one who becomes perfect in their understanding when they see all of them in their happiness and distress also. This is also mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, that one should transcend the dualities in this material world. That means one should not be either disturbed or become attached to happiness and distress. This generally happens because many times we feel that I don't like summer, I like winter. So these are all attachments, and aversions also happen. So examples are given that if someone feels that, oh, the weather is too very hot, and it is that same consciousness that remains throughout his mind all through the life, and at the time of leaving his body, he thinks of the heat because that has been troubling him all through, and the next life he gets his birth in a hot climate. So this is how one's body is carried from one place to the other, or from one form to the other, based on one's attachment and also aversion. Many times nowadays there is a fashion in most of the houses to keep cats. Now earlier it used to be cows, then it used to be dogs. Of course, dogs are still present. Then it has come to cats, and it is also said that some places, like the Gulf countries, some of the rich persons, they keep tigers, etc. So when such animals are kept at home, our consciousness is always attracted towards them in the process of maintaining them. We develop love for them in the process, and the members in the family also develop attachment to these species. So what happens within the family, the affection or love is lost, and one tends to give more time and energy to uh, give their love to these species. So what happens is that suppose one keeps a cat in the house, at the end of life, the same cat comes into his consciousness and he has nothing else to do but to take birth as a cat. So whether it's a cat or a dog, ultimately one has to take the same form of life, whatever one takes, consciousness comes at the end of his life. That is why it is said that one should be very careful in the human form of life. So when we say the human form of life, that is why it is said that even demigods, they can take many forms. Examples are given like as to how Indra had to take the form of a pig. So like that, other demigods also, they also sometimes have to take various forms of life due to whatever either pastime or their karma, whatever it is. So this is what is called transmigration of the soul from one body to the other. But the spirit soul is the same. The external manifestation of the material body is what is different. But a true devotee or yogi is one who sees the presence of the soul everywhere and which is the same, and also presence of the super soul, which is also the same. It is not that the super soul is different in one body and the super soul is different in another body. They are all the same. Such a person is a right person with knowledge and who can understand that it is the Lord who is through whose energies all these are manifest, and he can see the presence of the Lord in everyone, and that everyone is also maintained by the Supreme Lord only. He is a perfect person in complete knowledge, and he gets a liberation from this material miseries in this material world. So what I have for this class for today, I can take some questions or comments if any of you have got a small purpose, few points, so I could give whatever I could get. So any questions or any comments from today's subject?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandava Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Dandava Pranam.
Thanks for the excellent class. Prabhuji, like soul and the super soul are present in every living entities.
Yes.
And different bodies, different is there. So what is the form of a soul, Prabhuji?
The form of the soul is all. What form of the soul?
Soul, see, soul is present in every. I can understand that yes, soul and super soul is present in every living entity, in the animals and other species, everything. It's like different dresses what they are wearing. So
yes.
What exactly is the form of the soul? Like we are as a part and parcel of Krishna. So Krishna is Sachit Ananda Vigraha. So Krishna also is actually what I is in the human form, like practically, isn't it, Prabhu?
Yeah. Okay, this is your query that whether soul has got a form and what form it is. Is that the question?
Okay. Yes, Prabhu. Yes.
The soul also has got a form. It is mentioned that the soul has got a 400 form, just like Narayana. And the soul, in terms of quality of the soul, is Satchidananda only. But the realization of the Satchidananda feature of the soul is realized only in the human form of life and above. That means human form, which include demigods and others. That realization can happen only in the human form and above. But the soul in all of them has got a 400 form.
Okay, Prabhu.
And is also a mention, even in Bible also it is said that the form of mankind has evolved from the form of God himself. So mankind has got his form from the form of God.
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah. Thank you,
Did I
Prabhu.
answer your question? Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhuji. And Prabhu, one more, like, as we say,
Yes.
we are Krishna Satchidananda, we are also part and parcel, so we are also Satchidananda. So the
Yes.
chit, the knowledge is limited now, Prabhuji. Like Sat is we are eternal, and bliss and knowledge and bliss, they are not. Is it limited or unlimited? Like, how do you understand
It
this?
is, there is no limit to bliss and there is no limit to knowledge also. But the ignorance is covered. Depending upon the coverage of ignorance, one can realize both the knowledge as well as bliss. Sometimes we might see that there are some devotees of the Lord who have a very vast knowledge, very wide knowledge, but some devotees may not have that. Depending on the basic, to the extent of coverage of ignorance, to that extent, the knowledge as well as bliss also gets covered. Some of them we might see there while they are seeing Kirtan, they automatically go in bliss. We might see that. Others may not. So the soul is the same. That means the eternity, bliss, and knowledge in all of them is the same. But to the extent that they are covered by ignorance, one will not realize this bliss and knowledge. Otherwise, it's the same for all.
So the knowledge and bliss, it depends on our karma, Prabhuji. Like knowledge also, like, or how exactly we get the knowledge?
When we say karma, different beings are covered to a different extent by passion and ignorance. So to the extent that one is covered by ignorance, of course, that coverage also happens because of our previous karma, current. It is also mentioned as to how one can wash off all karma in one's life itself. At the same time, what we have done in the past, we don't know. So the ignorance, if it has been higher, now, for example, I think I mentioned one of the classes that human form of life also comes through 3 different forms of life. Through goodness from cow, through passion from bear or tiger, through passion, and through ignorance from monkey. These different entities have different levels of ignorance. A cow is supposed to be the mode of goodness. So when he gets into a human form of life from there, the goodness in the human being will definitely be more than a person who takes a human form of life from monkey. Monkey is supposed to be the mode of ignorance. So definitely, though the soul is the same, but realizations will be different because of the level of ignorance and the mode of passion in their respective bodies.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji.
Similarly, every human being, there is a difference. You might say not everybody is in the same level of knowledge, or not everybody is the same level of intelligence. That also varies from person to person. Similarly, it is said that not all the demigods have the same level of power with everybody. Not everybody can do the same thing. So all these are dependent on to the extent of the mode of goodness and passion and ignorance that is present in that particular body due to whatever their karma might be, previous or current it might be.
So in this case, like a lot of human beings are like they are on mode of ignorance because they are not in devotional life. So this is it because of the karma there, or because ignorance also? I feel because of the karma's last birth, whatever the reactions, the ignorance will be there. So how can one come to the devotional life, Prabhuji?
The opportunity to take up devotional service is open to all, whether one is in the mode of goodness or whether one is in the mode of passion or one is in the mode of ignorance. Now, Lord has not closed the opportunity for everyone. He has given sadhu, he has given shastras, he has given guru also. Now, someone who is in a very deep mode of ignorance, I've seen some people who have been with whom I've been very closely associated when I'm in the corporate atmosphere. When in an atmosphere like that, where there's a lot of opulence, lot of opulent association, they tend to go and try to enjoy whatever opulence they have, go to clubs, drink, and all those things. But all those also, there are some cases where they have realized that it has no meaning in life. In my own case also, I was working in corporate, but I realized that working very hard day in and day out has no meaning in life, irrespective of whatever you do. Finally, one reaches a point, it may not happen in one birth, but at some point, definitely one tries to understand or realizes that it is a wastage of life. In fact, I was discussing last week also with somebody who came from the USA. There's a lot of wealth there, but ultimately the question was, what they achieved by getting all the wealth? Because the accumulated wealth is of no use, only up to this life. If you have 100 crores of rupees and you are going to live for say 5 years or whatever it is, what will you do with all that money you have struggled all through the life? So this understanding comes if one becomes a little bit inquisitive, and then Lord, as seated as the super soul, guides such a person to someone who can give this inspiration. The purpose of life is not this, but to ultimately to realize who we are. That also happens by the mercy of the Lord. And he gives the mercy of devotees of the Lord by which one gets the benefit. So even if one is in the mode of ignorance, if he takes the proper association, he can also be gradually elevated to the mode of goodness.
When one accumulates wealth, it's like for the senses, they feel the pressure. Oh, this much property we have, this much wealth I have. I feel I'm secure like this. These things all come up, but it's all one doesn't realize that this is all temporary, and that is the reason. I don't know.
There are instances where people have struggled, have long cherished ambitions to go abroad and work. They have worked and they have met with an accident and left their bodies. So what is the use of all that? But their relatives have realized that had they been here, they would have been better. So ultimately, whether it is wealth, family, friends, nothing has got any value. This can be realized only in the human form of life. People develop so much of attachment to their family members, but the same family members are not there with you at the next life. That understanding can come only when one reads Bhagavad Gita and understands the scriptures through devotees of the Lord.
Yes, very rightly said, Prabhuji. But family responsibility also should be taken.
One should take care of the family. In fact, Srila Prabhupada always said that one should take care of their family. But at the same time, one should not become so attached to the family that they are compromising on spiritual life. Rather, if they take up the entire family together in the progress of spiritual life, everyone gets benefited. That is the purpose that is given. So if one member takes up devotional service, others get the benefit of it, which need not happen. For example, if one is practicing, other family need not get the benefit, but within the family, at least others get the opportunity which would not have happened otherwise.
Yes, rightly said, Prabhuji. Thanks a lot, Prabhuji.
One should have a right balance between material life and spiritual life. It should not be that one practices spiritual life at the cost of sacrificing the family. At the same time, it should not happen that one compromises spiritual life just to maintain the family. It should be a right balance between both, so that all of them get the benefit out of it.
The priority should be given to the spiritual life, isn't it?
Priority should be given. At the same time, their family should not be neglected, because we have brought up the family. We have taken the responsibility of family. They should not be neglected. That compassion should be there.
Yes. When compassion is there, too much of compassion will lead to attachment again.
That is why Lord says you come out of attachment and aversion.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you. Dandar Pranam, Prabhuji. Jai.
Thank you for that. Anybody else? Any other questions, comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Very nicely explained. If recording is there, is it possible to share? Because
one who is coordinating can give the recording. Prabhu, I'm not a tech savvy person.
It will be in the Facebook,
you-
Prabhuji. Facebook recording is there.
Yes. It's
Okay.
live currently, and Mataji, you can go to Facebook and then look for today's class, and it will be available there.
Okay,
Not
thank you.
Facebook; it is also available on YouTube as well.
Okay.
YouTube, it
thank
is available.
Yeah. Can you send me the YouTube link, please?
Mataji, I don't have your number, but nevertheless, if you search for ISJM, Jagannath
Okay.
Mandir class, Bhagavatam class, you will see today's class.
Okay.
It's currently running live.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any other questions, comments? So can you take the class as closed? Thank you all very much. Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you.